Said already. Oh, okay, so we have to quiet down the breakfast crowd over there.
Okay, the class has begun. Rabbi Daniarov is giving a class. Please join in.
People get very excited. It's nice weather, good food. All right, let's go on. The pasuk, I decided to do something a little bit different today as an introduction. Usually we discuss a little bit musar or whatever else it might be before halakha. So the halakha topic will be afterwards. We're going to summarize basically what we spoke about last week. And last week I gave too much information. I felt like it was a little bit too much information. This week we're just going to summarize a little bit and make it very practical. But before we get there, I want to just discuss something that I found to be something that I ran into a lot recently, and I found to be something important for all of us to work on. The pasuk says, Kadosh Baruch Hu says in Parashat Bechukotai, this parasha that's coming up, that if we're going to serve Hashem in a way that's mikra, whenever it's convenient, sometimes yes, sometimes no, that's one way of understanding it. And another way of understanding it means that people, the Unklu says that Im Tilchui Mi Bikeri means that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is telling us, when is He going to punish us? Unklu says, you know when? When people don't want to get too close to Hashem. That's another parish of what this means. Some people, they're happy staying far. They say, like, this is good. Becoming too close is already too much, not for me. Right? People like that. Right? Also is Bichlad, this pasuk Im Tilchui Mi Bikeri. However, the Rambam says something very fascinating, which I find to be very important to know. A lot of times in life, there's so much happening around us all the time, personal life, general, Klal Yisrael, in every area. But this Rambam applies to every single area of life. The Rambam says, Mitzvat aseh min haTorah liz'ok ul'ariya b'chatzotrol al kol tzara asher tavo al hatzibur. The Rambam writes, anytime there's a tzara, anytime there's a difficulty, anytime there's suffering, anytime there's a tragedy, anytime something difficult happens on Klal Yisrael, this also applies to an individual. Right? There's a mitzvah to scream out to Hashem, to start blowing trumpets and arousing people and waking people up. And he says that's the way of tshuva, is that when people see that there's sorrows happening, they have to know, the Rambam says. Now we're not talking about somebody here that's talking about the Rambam. The Rambam was one of the greatest people of Jewish history. Right? And it says, V'yadu akol, and everybody should know, it's because of their wicked ways and because of the averot, that this tarot came into Klal Yisrael, or this tarot came into a person. Difficulties and suffering don't just befall onto a crowd or people and so on and so forth for no reason. The Rambam says everything is the result of averot. Everything is the result of sin. Right? And he says that this tshuva of recognizing and acknowledging that what's happening is happening from Hashem, that's going to remove the suffering from Klal Yisrael. He says, however, if there's going to be suffering, or there's going to be tzarot, whether for a person individually, whether for a person as a klal, whether klal is as a klal, and people, they don't scream out to Hashem, and they don't start arousing themselves to change. Like the Ramchal also writes, that any suffering, any difficulty in life is a wake-up call. Like Kadosh Baruch Hu is telling a person, I want something from you, you need to fix something, you need to do something. Kadosh Baruch Hu doesn't just bring difficulties on a person for no reason. Everything is b'hashgacha elyonan. And he says over here, but if the Rambam says, the minhago shel olam, it happens. Life has its ups and downs. You got bad neighbors, life has its ups and downs. Somebody did something bad to you, life has its ups and downs. A person can come up with many excuses. Why it's like this and why it's like that. And people, right, he says you don't see Hashem in the situation. He says that's the way of people that are cruel, and it causes them to continue being wicked, and it causes them to continue suffering, and Klal Yisrael to continue suffering. That mentality, he says. Rambam says, Ve'alachtem imi bikeri. Rambam says, if you're going to go with me, bikeri, the parish of this pasuk, if you're going to go with me, bikeri, what does keri mean? Hashem says, I'm going to go also with you, and with wrath, with anger. Meaning to say that when a person will treat everything that happens in the world as if it's a coincidence, or treat anything that happens in his life as if it happened this way. It wasn't orchestrated by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Rather, it worked out. Bad luck, he got stuck with somebody that's bothering him all the time. Right? Somebody comes into the... So it says over here, very interestingly enough, he brings a story in the Gemara. The Gemara says, Rav Yeshua ben Chananya, when he went to Rome, in Rome during this time there was a siege. They were sieging over Yerushalayim, And this is the time where they were wanted to destroy the Beit HaMikdash. And the Jewish people were hiding in Yerushalayim. They were under siege and they were in Yerushalayim, within the walls of Yerushalayim. And Rav Yeshua ben Chananya, he went to Rome and he saw, they told him that they took a Jewish boy that was very beautiful and they put him in jail. So Rav Yeshua ben Chananya went there to see him and he stood by the entrance and he told the boy a pasuk. He said, Mi netalim shisa Yaakov esela bozazim. He told the boy, who put Klal Yisrael under such disgrace? Who put Klal Yisrael under such suffering? What did the child say? He says, Alo Hashem zu chatanu lo. Isn't it HaKadosh Baruch Hu? V'lo avu b'drachav, since we didn't go in his ways and we didn't follow in his Torah. And therefore all the suffering that's happening is happening to us. This was the boy's reply, a little boy. When Rav Yeshua ben Chananya heard this, he said, this boy is going to become the next Gadol Hador. Rav Yeshua ben Chananya went, he raised money amongst everywhere, and he saved his kid from jail. But the question here is, what did the boy do? What did the boy say? He didn't do anything special, didn't say anything special. Rav Yeshua ben Chananya says the beginning of the pasuk, and the boy just finished the pasuk. So you're right, that pasuk describes that all the suffering in Klal Yisrael happens through their avirot. But at the end of the day, what was Rav Yeshua ben Chananya so impressed with? What was he so impressed with? The boy just finished a pasuk. Back in the day, it was very common for boys just to know the pasukim. Rather, Rav Soloveitchik explains very interestingly. Rav Soloveitchik says that during that time in Yerushalayim, when there was a siege and the Romans wanted to conquer, there was walls all around Yerushalayim, so the Jews were protected in Yerushalayim. What happened? Inside Yerushalayim, there was enough produce and wheat, there was enough food for them to be able to survive for a while, be able to push off the siege, be able to live through what's happening and eventually get out of it. But what happened? Inside Yerushalayim, there was a bunch of gangsters. These gangsters, they said, no, we have to go out and fight the Romans. We can't just stay here and hide. What did they do? They took and they burnt all their food. They took all the wheat, all the produce, they burnt all the food. Now what? The Jews on Yerushalayim, they have nothing to eat. Now they have to go out to fight, otherwise they're going to starve to death. What happens eventually when they went out to war, because they had no choice? They ended up losing and Yerushalayim ended up getting sieged and captured. And many people were saying, oh, you know why? It's because we didn't go to war earlier. Oh, you know why? Because there was a famine, people were starving and people were weak. That's why they lost the war. It was during this time when Yerushalayim was destroyed, nobody got up and said, we were wicked, it was our avirot, we were like this, we were like that. Everybody was blaming something else. It's because of this, it's because of this, it's because of that. Bad leader, a president, a kind of, you could call it whatever you want. So when Yeshua ben Chananya saw that this child, his reply was that it's really all Hashem. The fact that this child was able to recognize that HaKadosh Baruch Hu runs the world, that there's a shkacha pratit in the world, and that everything that was happening was directly from Hashem because of Avirot, Rav Yeshua ben Chananya saw that this child had that recognition of realizing that it's all Hashem. He realized that this child is going to be a gadol. Why? Because a person has to know that everything in the world happens from Hashem. The Rambam writes, why is it also to take revenge? Right? It's us to take revenge, the Rambam writes. Why is it us to take revenge? The pasuk says, Lo tikom lo titor. I cannot hold a grudge, I cannot take revenge. Why not? You did something to me. Why can't I hold a grudge against you? Right? We made a business deal and you sold me something fake. Now you don't want to pay me the difference. Why can't I be upset at you? Why can't I take revenge? It's nature to take revenge. It's normal. It sounds very logical. You did something to me, I want to do something to you. The Ramchal writes that revenge is as sweet as honey. People like to take revenge. Why? It equals make my emotions happier now. But Rambam writes, why can't you take revenge? What's the problem? The Rambam writes, you know why? Because a person has to believe that if somebody came and he did something bad to you, a person's reply has to be that what? It was my avirot that caused this person to come punish me. That's what the Rambam says. That when a person has avirot and something bad happens to a person shouldn't say, he did it, that one did it, because of him, I listened to that one, ended up here. The Rambam says, no, you're missing the point. HaKadosh Baruch Hu orchestrated everything because you deserve it. That's what he says. Can you imagine such a... And that ba'atzim is mitzvus. That ba'atzim is what's really happening. There was a chacham in a Gemara. He had 400 barrels of wine. 400 barrels of wine. One day they all turned into vinegar. So what did he do? Chachamim came to him and he told the Chachamim, right? How could it be that my barrels turned into vinegar, right? So the Chachamim asked him, maybe you have some sort of avirah that Hashem is punishing you for? He told the Chachamim, you suspect me of making avirah? What did the Chachamim answer him? You suspect of Hashem punishing you without an avirah? It woke him up a little bit. He made a cheshbon on nefesh, he realized that he did wrong. He did teshuvah, he fixed the aviran. He was a little bit dishonest to one of his workers. Why? Because his work was a little dishonest to him, and he did the same thing to him. Right? So he told him, you want to taste the taste of geneva also? He did teshuvah, he worked it out with his worker. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Gemara says two things happened. Either the vinegar went up, or either the vinegar turned back into wine. Either or, it's something that happened that he didn't lose that money at the end. So you see a direct result of what a person does. HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't just do things. And people come to ask, okay, so if it's Hashem, then why is Hashem doing this and why is Hashem doing that? Like we just said, it's all of Avirot. Everything is Avirot. One time somebody came to somebody and he said, where was God at the Holocaust? People ask these questions all the time. And they feel like since I asked that question, I could walk away. That's it, I'm good. Close, right? I have nothing else to... One time, there was one boy, he was very, very difficult. And his father had a very hard time with him. And he never listened to his son. What did the father do? The father took the boy to the window. He told him, you see the forest over there? He said, there's a wolf over there. If you're not going to behave, I'm going to make sure that this wolf is going to eat you. The boy got scared a little bit. For a week, 2 weeks, he behaved. After that, he forgot. Like everything. People, something happens, a little bit of time given, they forget. People forget things. So what happened? Again, the boy goes and he starts doing whatever he's doing again. Bad, going out, making problems, trouble. What did the father do? The father went out to a hunter inside the forest, and he told him, listen, I want you to hunt for me a big wolf. I want you to take off his skin, take off everything, make me like a wolf costume, wolf clothing. He said, okay. And he made him like a wolf clothing. He made it nice and clean. The father put it on one day. He ran into the house. He ran into the house where his son was, and he grabbed his son, and he started scratching him as if a wolf was scratching him, and he was hurting him, and then he ran out of the house. 2 minutes later, the father runs into the house, and the son tells him, trembling, he says, where were you when the wolf attacked me? He didn't get it. He didn't realize Dan himself was his father. He was just trying to teach him something. People ask, where was Hashem? How come it's like this? How come it's like that? Sometimes when you tell people that everything's from Hashem, sometimes it might be good, sometimes it might work the other way around, because then people start to think, what did I do that Hashem is doing this to me? But a person has to believe that everything that HaKadosh Baruch Hu does is mamash gamzul l'tovah. A person has to understand when something happens, a person has to see Hashem in the situation. So many times, so many things happen to people, they start to go everywhere. But one thing they miss. Did Hashem do it? Hashem did it. You have to ask yourself, why did Hashem do this to you? Why did Hashem put you in such a situation? Right? Why did Hashem send this person to do that, to put you in such a situation? People have to think that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, have to realize that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is running the world. And that's what the pasuk in the Torah says, Im tenchuim bikeri, if you're going to go and live in this world as if everything's just a mikra, everything's just happening, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to bring more Yisurim and Klal Yisrael in order that they should wake up. So whenever we see suffering, tragedies, and so on and so forth happening in Klal Yisrael, it's just a reflection of our avirot in the world. And therefore, every single person has to get up and he has to change, do tshuva, and try to make himself better, and that in of itself will have a positive effect on the world. Now we said last week we were discussing superstition, what you're allowed to believe in, what you're not allowed to believe in. So I tell you, with this superstition, there's so much machloket, there's so many opinions, but at the end of the day, we're going to stick to the Shulchan Aruch's opinion, and even though there's a lot of opinions, we'll stick to the Shulchan Aruch's opinion. I think I wrote down like a bunch of topics that I wanted to talk about. Let's see if I put it in here. Is this it? I think this is it, yeah. So it says like this. I wanted to discuss what it says over here. Last week we ended up saying that a person, is he allowed to believe in these things or not allowed to believe in things? We said that the halacha says we don't start something on Monday and Wednesday. Right? We said that last week. So some people wanted to know, right? Should we start on Monday, Wednesday? Should we not start on Monday, Wednesday? And then we said over here, start something new. Say a person wants to start something new, a new business, or start building a house, or start anything new that a person wants to do, he wants to learn a new whatever it might be. We don't start on Monday and Wednesday. We said last week, there's a few reasons. One, according to the Zohar, I think we said that the mazalot during that day were difficult. And according to Rabbi Bachai, I think it says that Gehenna and Machloket were created in that world, something like that, right? And then we said, also a person should only get married in the first half of the month as a Siman Tov. right? And then afterwards the Ramah comes and he adds different things. So we said last week that this minhag in the Shulchan Aruch, according to the Ramban is okay, but according to the Rambam it's asur. So we're going to stick clearly to what the Shulchan Aruch says. Even though we mentioned a lot of opinions, a lot of machlokot last week, simply we're going to stick to the Shulchan Aruch. A lot of people do what the Shulchan Aruch says here. A lot of people do the Shulchan Aruch says, including yeshivot. A lot of yeshivot, they start on Rosh Chodesh to learn as Newsman, or they start on Tuesday or Thursday, or whatever it might be. A lot of yeshivot, they do what the Shulchan Aruch over here says. Why? Because Simana Miltihi. There's something called Simana Miltihi. What is Simana Miltihi? The Ben Ish Chai has the tshuva. I remember this whole tshuva clearly. I didn't have a chance to look it over. This Ben Ish Chai's tshuva, he says on Rosh Hashanah, we eat simanim. Right? Rosh Hashanah, we eat simanim. Why do we eat simanim? What, this is going to change my decree? If I eat a date, I'm going to have a good year? If I eat a pomegranate, I'm going to have a good year? What does it have to do with anything? Right? It says, don't eat a tail, eat a head. So if I eat a tail, I'm going to be a follower. If I eat a head, I'm going to be a leader. What does it have to do with anything? What does me eating the simanim have anything to do with a year? You ever think about that? Don't eat anything sour, you can have a sour year. What does it have to do with food? What does it have to do with eating anything sour? Rather, this simanim is something a little bit more complex. There's several different hezberim over here, but the Ben Ish Chai is a very interesting hezber. The Ben Ish Chai explains that really in Shemayim there's a lot of gezerot on a person. It could be good, it could be not good. And everything that a person does in the physical world, it creates a spiritual reaction and brings it down into the physical world. So he says that if there's a good gezerah in Shemayim, a person needs to bring that good gezerah down. If there's a bad gezerah in Shemayim, a person needs to do something in order to bring it down. Everything that is decreed Shemayim, a person needs to do things to bring it down. So therefore he says, just like hishtadlus we'll call it, you have to do some action in order to be able to make it happen. So it says, if there's a good decree in a person, by eating something sweet, that's like the hishtadlus to bring that the good decree. That's the way the Ben Ish Chai explains it. And he brings different rayot, different proofs, that he says that you see that when you do physical things, it creates spiritual reactions. So when you do something sweet or something positive, if something good is up there and it's something good and positive and sweet, this action will cause this spiritual reaction to come down. Such a svar, such a thing that he says. Also he says we find in Chazal a lot of things, right? That we do l'siman hamilta. It says that what? We get married on Wednesday, right? And Wednesday and why? Because that's when Wednesday and they live together on Thursday, which is Wednesday night. Why? Because the fish were created on that day, so you want it to be a good siman that they should have also a lot of children and so on. And so it's also with the Ashkenazim, they make a chuppah they make a chuppah outside. Ashkenazim make chuppah outside. Why? It's a siman tov that just like they're under the stars, they should have zera like the stars, should be larov, should have a lot. Right? He says also, we spilled a cup of havdalah for siman tov, wine, which is a baracha, we spilled a little bit of should be baracha in the house. So you see, there are things that we do as a siman tov. So you can't say everything's asr, every siman is asr. There are certain simanim that are mutar. And he goes through a lot of simanim over here that we as Jews do throughout the whole entire year, that we do it in a way that's mutar. Right, so even though last week we said certain things that are sur, and there are certain things that are sur. So this week I want to dwell a little bit on what's mutar and why is it mutar. There's a long tshuva from the Ben Ish Chai, and the next week we'll discuss why certain things are sur based on the way we explain why these things are mutar. Now, we don't have that much time, but I want to do the Ben Ish Chai's tshuva. The Ben Ish Chai has a very interesting tshuva over here, and I think it's very fundamental, very important. This is a topic that not many talk about. The Ben Ish Chai spoke about it. He lived in Baghdad. I'm assuming over there a lot of people believed in this stuff. A lot of people probably believed in this stuff. Over here. The Ben Ish Chai brings over here that there used to be a minhag by ladies when they used to give birth. What did they do? They used to take a shish kebab stick. They used to take chicken feet. They used to put it inside the shish kebab stick inside the chicken feet. And then they used to take a material cloth, which is the color of techelet, like blue-greenish type of color. They used to put it on the stick. And then they used to take 7 onions, and they used to put 7 onions on the stick. And they used to put it on the bed next to the lady that just gave birth. So they asked the Ben Ish Chai, how could something like this be mutar? The Gemara, the Tosefta and Shabbat that we mentioned last week says it's asur to do this. Why? Darchei Amori. This is like a way of Avodah Zarah. This is the ways of the Goyim to do such a thing. Right? And we said last week, if you remember correctly, that even though the Tosefta mentions a lot of things that are asur, the Gemara, our Gemara never brought this Tosefta. So we don't hold like that l'halacha. Right? And we don't hold like that l'halacha. However, he says over here, very interestingly enough, he says that anything that's not brought in the Gemara is going to be mutar, right? And he says, since over here they do this sugula in order to protect from the mazikin, in order to protect from the tumah, from the negative energies that come to a lady after she gives birth, therefore he brings, therefore it would be mutar, and he brings the tshuva to Rashba. The Rashba was a very big posek. He was one of the biggest Rishonim. I'm sure Ben Aderet, he was a very big posek. They say the Rashba, one of him is like two other Rishonim. A very big gadol. He says for him something very interesting. He says the only thing that you have to be choshesh that are also because of Darchei Amori, only in the Gemara and not anything else which is brought in the Tosefta. And it means the Bet Yosef and so on and so forth. Also that's saying that it is mutar. And the only things that are going to be asur is things that we know for sure that come from the goyim. If we know something for sure comes from the goyim, that'll be asur. Ispandu, I don't think this is the Jewish. Chicken's kaparot, this is a machloket. Right? The Shulchan Aruch says that it's also mishum darchei amori. Right? But the Arizal says, okay, and many have a minhag to do it. Right? Many have a minhag to do it. Right? But anything that comes from goyim is asur. Just to go off topic a little bit, I had my neighbor, he's a rabbi. I don't think Ispandu is mutar because what's the source of it? Is there any source? Is there any logic to it? They make you hug a tree, they burn all the stuff, they say all these weird things. Besides the fact that they mention a lot of pesukim, it could be asur because en mitrapin b'divrei Torah. You're not allowed to use divrei Torah to heal yourself. So when you're doing it as a form of healing, that could also be a problem. We'll get to that later on. I don't know. From what I saw in Ispandu, I don't understand why it's mutar. It's strange. It has no source in the Chachamim. And it seems like a goyish thing to do, and they say a lot of weird things, and I don't know why it's mutar. If you could find me reasons and sources why it's mutar, we have something to talk about, right? But he says over here that the only thing that we're concerned about is things that are mentioned in the Gemara. Not only that, he says that this stick that they take, why did they take chicken feet? He's going to now explain little by little why they do everything. And not only that, he brings the Chavot Ya'ir, that says that anything that the women do, anything that frum women do, religious women do, and they're frum, like for example, they take the lead for Ayin Hara, right? That's okay. Right? The lead for the Ayin Hara is a Kabbalah, Menashim Tzidkaniyot, that a lot of frum women do it, and I know that there were even big people that agreed that would be okay because they're not actually healing you, they're not actually removing Ayin Hara, they're just telling you if there's Ayin Hara on you.
It's not a natural thing for the lead to do this whenever you burn it. Always forms balls like eyes, and then just pop them. We've been making.
I don't know.
Always, this is what it does.
I don't know, but according to this Chavot Ya'ir, it's true. It could be that it's not. It doesn't make a difference anyways. Even if a person has an Ayin Hara, what is he going to do about it?
He says, look, you're so much Ayin Hara, look. Make a fuss about it.
And the whole world has Ayin Hara. Everybody has Ayin Hara. You're sitting in a crowd of people. What?
99% of the people have Ayin Hara.
There's no point of it. What are you going to do about it? So you have Ayin Hara, now what? What are you going to do about it?
And that could open up doors to a lot of other things. Chicken feet, next thing people are starting with cow's feet.
So chicken feet, he says over here, you know why he says, you know why they put chicken feet? It's because it says that he brings the Gemara that says that Shin Dalet's demons, their feet resemble chicken feet, and therefore when they cut off the chicken feet and they put it on the stick and you put it by the lady but who just gave birth, so the demons that want to come, they see the chicken feet, they feel like, oh, they're killing demons here, they run away. We just killed one. Right, so therefore they become scared. So the Ben Ish Chai is going to defend this minhag.
Should they put more pegs over there, more sticks on the side of it?
Maybe. Right, I don't know. Look, the bottom line is, you're right, all these things might work, this might work, that might work. Maybe one day we'll get into Sigulot. But the best thing is to trust in Hashem. The Ben Ish Chai writes, the strongest thing to remove from a person bad decrees and to give a person bracha and atzlach in life is to read Tehillim, the Ben Ish Chai writes. More than Torah, he says. Right? Even more than Torah, the Ben Ish Chai says. Specifically for this. Person, take a couple, read Tehillim, shed a little tears. I tell people, read Tehillim in English if you don't understand it in Hebrew. It's important to understand what you're reading. Right? Speak nicely, don't speak Lashon Hara, to change as a person. When a person lives in a way that Hashem is happy from him, things become better. If a person sins all he wants and then he goes and does Ispandu, you think it's going to work? It's not going to do anything. Right?
The Chaim says on the pasuk of Tamim Tiyeh Hashem Elokecha. He says read the pasuk backwards and frontwards. He says Tamim, be simple with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And then he says if you switch it around, Im Hashem Elokecha, if you're with Hashem, then Tamim Tiyeh, you'll be
okay also. That's true. You gotta You gotta trust in Hashem. That's really the number one thing. That's one of the reasons why the Torah authored a lot of these things, because they don't want people to believe in all these things and they remove themselves from Hashem. Hashem wanted us to trust in Hashem, to believe in Hashem, to come close in Hashem, because the bottom line is that Kadosh Baruch Hu does anything. Right? And if Kadosh Baruch Hu wants, nothing will help a person. And if Hashem wants, anything will help a person. And he says, what's the reason why they take the clothing and they make it into blue color? He brings a story that says the blue color, the color of Techelet, it protects the person from Ayin Hara. Right? That color protects, he brings from the Zohar, it protects the person from an Ayin Hara. That's a machlokis. That's a segula in the Gemara. That's a segula in the Gemara. For Ayin Hara, the Gemara says that if you take your two thumbs and you put them inside like this, and you say a certain pasuk with your name inside, it protects you from Ayin Hara.
But what about the red string that they sell for Ayin Hara?
There's a machlokut whether or not that's mutar, and even if it's mutar, again, Ayin Hara doesn't work like this. You cannot put on a string and that's it, chalos, that's it. It doesn't work like that. Ayin Hara is that if somebody is jealous of you, right, they open up a person's judgment in Shamayim, and they look whether or not a person really deserves this or not, and they look into a person's avirot and his mitzvot, and then slowly he starts to suffer and get a kapara for what he goes through. Suddenly this goes bad, that goes bad, against this, against that. I know it doesn't work like people think it the way it works. A red string is not going to protect you. What's it going to do?
It's a silent prayer. Ayin Hara is a silent prayer. The person prays to Hashem saying, why did he get it and I didn't? So they open up, every tefillah gets accepted by Hashem and gets answered.
It's true, but
so this is it.
There's a machlokit what Ayin Hara is. There's a machlokit between the Achronim, I think, whether it's a koach tumah or whether it's a kitrug in Shemayim. There's hundreds of different types of Ayin Haras also. It's not so simple, this topic of Ayin Hara. It doesn't just work with a red string or with a blue thing or with this and with that. These things doesn't. The Lubavitch Rebbe says that if a person has, I'm not just saying this because I'm a sofer, if a person has a good mezuzot and good tefillin, and he lives his life daily according to the Torah, he davens, learns, and he lives according to the Torah, he says, Ayin Hara cannot sholet, will not control this person, will not be able to control this person. If a person lives his life in accordance to the daily conduct of the way he's supposed to live. Right? And then he brings, right? And then he brings after that, he brings that what? By the way, maybe one time we need to make a shir to educate people of what the difference between all different types of mezuzot and tefillin and all the stuff are. A lot of people don't know the difference. They think it's just some printed paper that comes in a factory that Chinese people make in China or something. Right? And then he brings over here that the segula of onions. He says that onions, they have some sort of a koach in them, just like hisap is ezov, also has some sort of a koach in it. And he says he brings different things that you find that even in the Gemara, when this one lady came to Rav Meir said, I want you to make a lachash on my eye. He said, spit on my eye and then say something 7 times. So he says, you see something special in the number 7. And he brings others also that say that they do things right on the number 7. And then he brings more things. He says that you find that there's also another minhag, that if a child has a fever and he has blisters all over his body, they take a ring off of a dead person and they go over the child's body to heal him. The Chavot Yair brings this. It's an Ashkenazi postik. Right? And he also says that these things that are accepted by the Jewish frum women and the communities and the Gedolim didn't say anything about it, you could rely on the fact that they're okay. You don't have to be assumed that it's an Isra of maybe Lotanachashu, of that you're not allowed to go ahead and make yourself a sign and say, if this happens, this is the way it works. Right? And therefore he goes and he brings many different proofs that we're allowed to do things as a siman tov. You're allowed to do things as a good siman. You're allowed to believe in a good siman. Like the Gemara says, one of the Chachamim in the Gemara, he bought a house, and then when they wanted him to sell it, right, he says, no, I don't sell my first house. Why? It's not good mazal to sell your first house. Your first house you bought, you keep. It's not good siman to sell your first house. That's what he says. The Gemara says. Right? Also the Gemara says, a person shouldn't lend his wallet to anybody. Why? It's like selling his mazal. You give a person, it's like gives away a little bit of his mazal. So you see that the Gemara does bring different things that are simanim, does bring different types of things that are believed. Now, again, a person doesn't have to say, okay, I lend my wallet, that's it, I'm done for the rest of my life, it's over. It doesn't work like that. Right? You're right, these things have spiritual natures, these things have affects a person spiritually. But a person has to be tamim tiyashem lekech. A person has to live by the rule of Hashem. Person has to understand that even though all these things are simanim, at the end of the day, HaKadosh Baruch Hu could do whatever he wants whenever he wants. And a person has to be talking in Hashem, all these simanim, even the real ones that are real simanim, if a person has to be talking in Hashem, is above all these things anyways. So even if a person didn't do it like the Shulchan Aruch, he got married on a Monday at the end of the month, 2 opposites of what the Shulchan Aruch does. So I said, he's done? Everything is done? No. A person davens to Hashem and has bitachon and Hashem, he can have a better life than anybody else that was married at the beginning of the month on a Tuesday. Right? My point being is that you're right. This simanim, we're concerned for it. We do the Shulchan Aruch says different sugulot mutar, some sugulot asur, and we do whatever it says. But at the end of the day, a person also has to trust in Hashem and understand that we're above all of this. We'll stop over here. We'll do something else. So I'll tell you something that happened yesterday. My neighbor came to me. He's a rabbi. He told me that there's something that a lot of religious people do, and he doesn't understand that it's mutar. Now this might be a shock to everybody, but Rabelsky held strongly like this. Yoga. Is yoga permitted according to halacha or not? Why? People are going to say, what do you mean? Is kickboxing permitted? Is going to the gym permitted? What's the difference? Yoga is a system of exercise that I think they have different words or different criteria for different exercises that they do, that they believe in different spiritual energies, and they have to do yoga in a certain order in order to make all these energies work properly in order to be able to help a person or affect a person. The Shulchan Aruch says to believe in something that's illogical and that comes from the goyim and that you can't explain, and they believe in certain energies, the Shulchan Aruch says you always have to be concerned that there's some sort of avodah zarah involved, and it's asur to believe in such a thing. Why? Because what's going to happen? A person's going to start believing in this, and he's going to say, wow, it's really working. Wow, maybe where did this come from? I don't know, India, wherever it came from. Right? And a person starts to believe in the goyim, and he starts to believe in avodah zarah, it brings a person to avodah zarah. Right? And therefore, anything that the goyim do that has no logical understanding, that comes from a source, especially a culture of avodah zarah, and they believe in some sort of energies, the Rabelsky was completely against it. He held that it was completely asur, and he said this is bichlal what the Shulchan Aruch said. We're not saying everybody says that it's asur. There are poskim that say no, logo is logically explainable. There are energies that are in the body, and they can explain how these energies work. So since it's logically explainable, I can tell you that really it's mutar. So I can't say it's fully asur. Some say it's asur legamre because of avodah zarah. Some that say there is a mutar because it's logically explainable. At the end of the day, some yogas are an exercise. They don't do all the spirituality that's connected to it. So if you're going to a yoga that's just an exercise and there's no spiritual, you're just doing whatever exercise that they're doing, you're not in tune to the whole system of what they're doing, there I could see maybe it should be a little bit better. But if a person is actually involved in yoga and meditating in the whole system of yoga, a person should try to stay away from the chatchila.
What about women that don't get pregnant? They go to these old ladies to get whatever they do to get pregnant.
What do they do?
Huh?
What do they do? I don't know what they do.
What is that called? You know, when ladies that get pregnant, they go to old people.
Not an old lady, I don't know. Not an old lady.
You know what I'm talking about, no?
But, Rabbi,
They do или спандули, что такое делают же.
they have therapy, all types of therapy.
Does it work?
Huh?
It works? If it would work, there would be multi-millionaires. Believe me, it doesn't work.
They
Yeah.
have these therapies, that's why they have their job, they make money that way. So there's certain therapies people have, either they heal you through talking to you on the phone, or they simply concentrate their minds on thinking about you, and they're able to heal you from far away. And they claim that these things work. And they have all types of, again, same type idea of moving energies and doing stuff like that. Ridiculous. Another one they had also recently, somebody came up and says a lot of people are obsessed eaters, or they are extremely obese. And they have this thing as a therapy. They go, they do all types of things to you, and whatever, through therapy they're able to it penetrates, it has an effect on you, and that's it. What about hypnosis?
What's wrong?
Hypnosis, right? People obsessed eaters or whatever, they go for a session of hypnosis, and the guy does whatever he does, and the person starts being an obsessed eater.
Psychological thing, it's okay.
I don't know. I have to look into it. I have no idea how all these things work. I learned this many years ago. We spoke about acupuncture. It's very...
You're changing energy, you're using energy field, and they say Hashem gave each nation their own secrets.
Right, he gave them Tumah also, don't forget. He gave them the impurity.
The acupuncture is not so simple. It's also a big discussion.
Acupuncture is what? I'm sorry?
It's not so simple that it's allowed. Also, but our material, it's the same machloket, yes or no. If you go to the ones that are scientific, I think acupuncture is a little better because I think they have more scientific research and they could prove that it works in the nervous system and so on. It's something that it could be proven through doctors, through human intellect. But something that can't be proven or can't be felt or can't be understood, you're just going to take his word for that there's an energy that he could show you that he got from Thailand. That's worst. רבי חנניה בן הקשה אומרת, הקדוש ברוך הוא לעשות כל רצונה, לפי כך חלבנו תורה מצוות, שאנחנו נאמר לנו חפץ למען צדקו, יגדיל תורה